RCI's first iRacing IMSA Road Series continues. After a week off and a well-earned rest, the drivers in the three categories tackle perhaps their toughest task to date. Hello, everybody, and welcome in to continuing coverage of IMSA Road Racing Season 1 here at RCI TV. We are on the West Coast for the first time in the series at the world-famous Laguna Seca. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Sarah Stant with Ash Bibby behind the cameras. It's good to be back, but the drivers may have a completely different take on that coming to a very difficult racetrack, Sarah.
Absolutely. Laguna Seca is, as you can see already, one of those kind of tracks that's going to result in a lot of these kind of spinouts here. There is absolutely no room for error on a track like this. Between corkscrew and Andretti hairpin, you're going to see a lot of action today. A lot of drivers who are going to be muscling for position and possibly muscling into each other's cockpits. So hopefully this is more of a continued series and less continuing education driving.
Yeah, continued education certainly been the name of the series. The top two categories have had a little bit of a struggle with some of these American tracks. They're not as modern or up to date as some of the facilities that a lot of these teams are probably more used to. So when you have an incident, it goes big in America most of the time, but you got to worry about that. Last time we were at Watkins Glen 2 weeks ago, you had to worry about walls. While that's a little bit of a problem here today, it's more the confines of the racetrack that the drivers are going to be worried about here. You hit those giant sausage curbs, those red curbs on the entry and exit of some of the turns. It's going to be really bad in a prototype. GT's not quite so much. And also added to that, anytime you hit the dirt here, meaning that you run over the white lines on either side, that's likely going to result in a 1X.
Too many of those 1Xs and you're going to find yourself on a little trip through pit row. Hopefully we don't see too many of those, but I'm not very hopeful today. Nothing against the drivers we have. There's just so little room on such a narrow track to not end up with at least a few X's just going around the track.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult enough tackling all that, but the world-famous corkscrew, of course, a 5-story drop from the top to the bottom here. It's been taken on by all manner of racing vehicles over the years. Indy cars, open-wheel cars of all varieties, prototypes, sports cars, you name it, it's raced here. And today, the first time we'll see GTPs go through it. I was down in the garage talking to a couple of the drivers prior to qualifying getting started, and they said it is a bit of a dangerous affair. If you miss it ever so slightly, you will end up backwards at the bottom. The LMP2s have a similar yet opposite problem where their cars are incredibly tight, and trying to maintain your speed, the straight line down the corkscrew like you normally would in like a GTD car, for instance, can often result in you spinning out or just going straight off into the wall. I think the easiest drive of the day will, of course, go to the GTD cars, who are a little bit off of the pace of the other classes, as you would expect, of course, but also, too, they might be in the best handling car for Laguna.
And sorry, everyone. Laguna is a test of every single car out there. Every little bit of the track is going to be finding itself used today. And because of that, certain cars are going to excel and other cars are definitely going to struggle. We're definitely going to see a lot more clumped up GTPs and LMP2s. And honestly, we're going to see a few of those GT3s or GTDs really kind of muscling through some of those corners. We're going to see what happens when those cars with a little bit of a better aero and braking kind of go up against other cars with good aero and braking.
Qualifying underway at this point, just about 4 minutes 20 seconds left to go in the session. Lindner holds the pole position in the GTP category. That Porsche has set a 1 minute 11.3. That is the quickest of anyone, of course, by the tune of half of a second. Back to Felipe in second, Billy Octane in third currently. Sindelar led earlier on in the session. Looks like Benjamin Heilman has taken a decent time and has just about eclipsed Peter Roche for the LMP2 provisional pole. It's a 1 minute 13.0, and that there in lies some of the problem. It was actually a little bit closer in practice. It was almost exactly 1 second the difference lap time between a GTP and an LMP2. that's going to be interesting to see. And that's exactly the red curb of doom that I was talking about. And that will take Sindelar back into the pit lane. Looked like Leach was just sitting there in the pit lane, maybe getting ready to go out, making some final adjustments. But I digress. Heilman, though, and Roche almost dead even, it looked like, on the scoreboard. You see the middle number there on your screen in the blue category. It's saying 0.0. Now, to my knowledge, Roche has taken a lap and done a lap time. And I could have sworn it was a few 1,000ths off of Heilman, but that lap time has since disappeared for the moment. GTD, Jančić leads Roof and Macha, your top three, a 121.5 for Jančić, who has just brought that car, the number 24 Porsche, into the pit lane. Barton Macha has gone off the racetrack, and looks like Luca Filippi has crashed trying to return back to the pit lane.
He really took that car into the pit lane, quite literally there.
He sure did, and that's unfortunate, but luckily that doesn't count. It doesn't matter. You wouldn't want to do that in the race, obviously, on your pit stop, but in quality, it doesn't matter. You just restart, get back out there. It's all fine. Hopefully everyone has tried to come into pit lane and also, importantly, get off of pit lane, of course, with the unique way that it sort of starts you uphill, exiting pit lane, and then it's a downhill and essentially a hairpin. And the lane, very, very small, very Daytona road course-esque, the exit of pit lane here. Getting on tricky, as you just saw as well. It is, I think it's actually more than a 90-degree left. I think it's a bit more acute than that as well. So either way, very difficult to do. And those tire packs don't act like real tire packs. They act like solid walls. It'll tear your car up.
And that's the last thing you really want in iRacing. With the long repairs and only, I believe, do we have one quick repair in the series? It's been a while since I've been on the comms here.
I think they do, yeah. I think Tom Bryant, the event manager, gave them a quick repair for every race.
Oh, blessed be to him.
Yeah, there's a lot of drivers that will be very happy about that. I initially thought there wasn't going to be one, but I think he corrected me a few weeks ago and said that there was. Jordan Daly has set a comparable time in their Porsche, but has gone off the track in the penultimate turn, and they have reset to the pit lane just like most people here have done. 45 seconds or so left to go in qualifying here. Anyone in pit lane, like Barton Macha, who is sitting at the exit of pit lane. In fact, there he is in the number 5 Ferrari. They'll take no further part, neither will Sindelar in the GTP category in the 50. Everybody else, I think, still has an opportunity. Yeah, it's a very ghostly pit lane. Everybody else out there either on a lap or finishing a lap and has already completed their quali. In fact, only one car now out there on the racetrack. Can't quite make out which one that is. It's a GTD, I know that, but one car left here.
I think it's Dominic.
Thus far. Oh, it was. You're absolutely right. It was the Lamborghini of Dominic,
who is really slow rolling it there.
Taking their very, very easy time there and qualifying all over. These are the results. Lindner on pole in GTP in the Porsche over Filippi's Cadillac. Billy Octane in third in their Porsche, with Sindelar and Daly is your top 5 all in Porsches, and 2 Cadillacs at the back, Leach and Lepp. And that is how the GTPs will stack up here for round number 5. LMP2, looks like Benjamin Heilman was able to out-qualify Peter Roche. We have a Peter Roche fan in chat cheering on the 404 Connection Lost team. You love to see that. Tom Bryant in third place in qualifying. Dykstra gets in the session and is going to start ahead of Ted Edwards. And those are your 5 LMP2s. Jančić out-qualified them all in GTD over Roof and Macha. 2 Porsches and a Ferrari in the top 3. Then Dominic's Lamborghini and Rose Audi. Behind them, Merchant, Wolf, Anderson, and Mead, your qualifiers in GTD. And now that we've got the qualifying order out of the way, let's take a moment and show you how the championship is stacked up thus far, 4 rounds in. Luca Filippi holds the championship lead in GTP over Jaroslav Sindelar, 192 championship points to their name. Ryan Leach, 185, just 2 points in front of Lucas Christek with 183 to theirs. Erkma with 166 points is your top 5. Lubos Lep on 136. Finn Dressel on 130. Daly has 127. Shuranak has 96. Bastian Lindner, who has, as of late, been putting people on notice, has 93 today, looking for more. 1 point behind them, Vladimir Broshek on 92. Joshua Parrott has 44 points. Oscar Fernandez with 40 points. Tom Carroll on 31. Roscom on 25. William on 21. And Patrick Din is your 17th driver with 17 points. LMP2 looking a little bit like this as we head down the stretch. Mikolai Jusak with 241 points. Maciej Hyla has 219, who I don't believe is here tonight. A lot of these drivers have signed out, not of the championship, but of this specific race. We'll keep you updated on that. Justin Dykstra in third place, a late joiner here tonight, 202 points. Tom Bryant, 175. Benjamin Heilman, your pole sitter, is fifth with 162. Ted Edwards has 154. Kamferger with 135. Sundstrom on 92. And Huell is ninth with 40. GTD lines up like this in the championship. Zoran Janjic on 217. Daniel Merchant in second on 169. Yannick Roof with 162. Christopher Rowe with 146. Bart Macha is your fifth driver with 143, tied with Piotr Dominicus, who is not here tonight as far as I could tell. Ada Wolf in seventh place with 141. Pavel Dazal with 136. Mead on 119. Watts on 118. Close race there, of course. Anderson, 96. Boss, who is also not here tonight, on 62. And Gutman with 44 points. Getting late in the championship, Sarah, there's a lot to play for here in this series. And we just hope that if you are bidding for a championship, it all stays together for you. But a long race here, 80 minutes of racing, 1 hour 20, and it will be a battle of attrition yet again at the smallest circuit on the calendar. The GTPs are let go. Lindner gets a good start with Filippi in tow as everybody in the GTP category gets single file almost unanimously, just waiting to get in line to get on with the race here. Billy Octane loses a spot to Sindelar, who moves up into third, and they're pretty much line astern in GTP.
Absolutely great start through Andretti Hairpin. Usually that's a space where a lot of people might try to go for that extra dive, end up a little bit wide and kind of go into each other. Great to see. Great job on Sindelar. He's really, really kind of showing that Burger King sponsorship he's got there. He's having it his way today.
I knew somebody was going to make that joke, and I'm glad. Well, it's not a joke. It's good promotion is what it is. I'm glad you did that. Peter Roche leads in the LMP2 category. It has been a massively horrible start for pole sitter Benjamin Heilman in the 796. The Connection Lost Racing 404 Dallara is in the lead in LMP2, and that's exactly what Roche wanted to see out of that. They've been able to convert a top two starting spot into the lead early. Dykstra and Bryan have moved up in their category. Dykstra, by the way, has moved up from fourth to second. Excellent job from that category. Janjic, Roof, and Macha, all of these cars are exactly where we left them. No movement at all between any of these cars, as they also primarily got single file. But there was a huge kerfuffle there in the LMP2 category.
Absolutely. Seeing Hyman fall 3 positions down is always really frustrating. You know, you want to see drivers be able to kind of continue that momentum they have off of qualification, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. Some drivers are just that much better at qualification. We're already seeing, look, we had a driver there nearly spin out, get those 1Xs. It's so important. If you touch that dirt, that's a 1X. This race is a long one, 1 hour and 20 minutes. You do not have the freedom to touch the gravel on this track. and
Dykstra
it's
feeling
going
the
to add up.
pressure a little bit there, huh?
Absolutely, absolutely. Seeing that sort of pressure from the driver behind them, maybe they're going to make a few... Oh, have we lost connection?
Well, technical difficulties right there. We'll step aside from live pictures. We'll continue to talk to you in the... Oh, no, we're all
There we
good.
go.
We're back on the racetrack. Just sim racing things. It happens all the time. But Peter Roche continues to lead in the category in the CLR car. But we were watching, that was Dykstra who went off of the racetrack. That will be at minimum a 1X. They dirtied up their tires and perhaps feeling the pressure from Tom Bryant, who had a decent enough start. I worry that Daniel Merchant and Anderson just got into an incident with themselves. Keep you updated on that. They were definitely both yellow flagged at the same time. That typically tells us in iRacing that there's been either some sort of incident or they were following each other off the racetrack, and just looking at it now, it looks like they were just following each other off the racetrack.
It's really impressive just how many people seem to be going with yellow this time. You're seeing a lot of really, really bright, kind of flashy cars out there. It's quite impressive, some of these liveries. Though I'm not seeing any Hellman's mayonnaise right now.
Oh, boy. Well, that's the first reference of Hellman's today. And, it is unfortunate that they picked the one color I can't say appropriately. And, I can't do that myself. I'll slip up at some point, and I'll say it, and everybody will get a nice chuckle out of it. But not right now, when I'm aware that that's happening. Lindner enjoying a 2.5-second lead over Felipe in GTP. The fight is elsewhere. Leach and Daly are fighting over 5th place in that category. Benjamin Heilman, who was your pole sitter in LMP2, pictured here in the very bright, almost chartreuse colored 796 Dallara, looking to pick up the pieces. They've caught Bryant. Bryant, of course, is right behind Dykstra, and Peter Roche now enjoys a 2.5-second lead in the LMP2 category. This is a massive fight here for second.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jesse, but unfortunately, that is not anywhere near chartreuse. That is closer to teal or cyan.
I'm also colorblind, so that's also a problem. You're absolutely right. Chartreuse is a bright green color, isn't it?
Something more of like a highlighter green, maybe a little bit more close to like a bright olive.
I didn't realize this. I thought it was pearlesced paint or something on that car, which is not something they can do. But it's just two different colors. It's all, I'm going to say seafoam, and you're going to correct me again. Oh, it's a big slide here from Tom Bryant. That's going to allow Heilman down the inside or down the outside. Tom Bryant takes the inside, but no, he's just going to let him go. I think Tom Bryant let Benjamin Heilman go there.
It absolutely looks like it. Probably a little bit afraid after seeing that sort of squirreliness that was happening there, and deciding just to let them go, get the position back later, don't risk getting caught up in whatever's going on. And yes, seafoam would be perfectly reasonable to say.
Thank you. I got one right. It's two-toned. It's a sort of a bright green, and it's also almost like a seafoam color on the Heilman
like a bright
car.
seafoam.
Back up to third, almost Hellman's colors. But I digress. Heilman now will have to retrack Dykstra back down. They got held up when Bryant nearly drove off the racetrack, which, of course, keeping track, folks at home, that would have been a 1X for Tom Bryant. We only get about 17 of those, or however many there are, and then that becomes a problem. A trip down pit lane, as Sarah Stant told you earlier on in the broadcast, so pay attention to that. Sindelar has had a massive accident and is still experiencing a massive accident in the number 50 car, and they've just got it righted together, and this is it. Working lap traffic is Sindelar. That's the yellow car right there, and it's just contact with the GT3. Now,
that was close.
It was indeed. Talking to some of the drivers in the Faster 2 classes, the prototype classes, they weren't necessarily concerned about GT3s today because of the massive pace gap here. They were worried about racing each other because there isn't one. But there we have it. It was an incident with the GT3. And look at this. Billy Octane having to use a mobile chicane here. He's going to lose out many positions because it looked like he had picked the smart choice, but ended up having to go so far off of the racetrack that allowed Leach and Daly through.
Absolutely awful to see for Octane. Seeing them lose damage or take damage to their tires, have to go wide, lose positions, that's always awful. And this is like kind of like what we were talking about earlier, in that the GT3 cars, or GTD cars rather, are better at breaking through the corners on this track than the LMP and GTD cars. And we just showed an example of that, where one of those cars braked in a weird spot and the GT car kind of went through the middle of them.
Speaking of
That is some risky moves. He is having it his way today.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's very true. Oh, and a GTD car off. That's Rowe in the number 74 Audi, who has had a spin. Now, was that assisted or by themselves? They don't seem to be around anywhere else. No, just too much rear bias there in the car, I think.
That was some quick maneuver there to push himself a little bit off track and avoid getting clipped in the back there. That would have been really terrible to see. Great job, Rowe, getting himself away from an area that might have caused a crash. You'll love to see it.
Andretti hairpin, a horrible place to be sedentary, because even if they do throw, which they will do, for the local yellow flag, they'll send it again. You can't see it. It's such a corner that you either lean off the corner or using it as a constant radius. But either way, there's likely an A pillar, or just that because of the nature of the corner, you just can't see. And even if there is a yellow flag, you just don't know that there's anything there. The LMPs and GTPs getting involved with the GT3 field already. It's a 10-second thereabout gap between them. So they caught them incredibly quickly. It took them less than 10 minutes, but now both the prototype categories mired in this traffic. But just as Sarah pointed out, these GT3s, some people will be surprised to hear this, but the GTD cars, they have better brakes than the prototype cars, simply because they're not going as fast. Their stopping distance is less. Therefore, they don't have to brake as long. And very sketchy moment here, splitting the GTD cars, but able to get in there. Everybody aware of the traffic. Of course, they'll be blue flagged. But that was our first incident, Sarah, right? With the GTD car being able to brake a little bit later. I wonder how many more times we might see that today.
Hopefully, that's the only time we see that today, because that is just absolutely soul-crushing. Those cars, the GTPs and the LMP2s, or GTDs rather, cannot... Yeah, the GTPs and the LMP2s cannot take rear damage. If they lose any damage to that rear arrow, those cars become incredibly unmanageable. They require that big back wing to really maintain control through corners, down straights, and right now we're seeing a lot of those drivers trying to slide through these GTD cars, and it's bound to happen at this point. Seeing risky moves like that one right there. That was a really unsafe kind of slide in there. Very lucky that the GTD driver was paying attention, otherwise they would have found themselves inside the cockpit of that car.
Yeah, if you're wondering why we flip-flop on calling them GT3s and GTDs, the actual moniker in IMSA racing is a GTD, a Grand Touring Daytona car, but they're really just GT3 cars with very specific bids on the car. That could be an aero difference, a lighting package difference, a weight difference. So they're GT3 cars, but IMSA specs. So GTD, you could basically, in less than a week's time, the whole purpose of GTD is you could take a European GT3 car and you could bring it to America and race it. It would take you less than a week to convert it, and you could do the same thing. You could put it back to GT3 spec in less than a week and race it elsewhere as well. That's the whole purpose of it. It's I used to know what some of the car's differences are, but I know on one car it's an aero difference. On I think the Ferrari it's a lighting change or something to that effect, and also a ballast difference as well. But of course, IMSA has its own balance of performance, which a couple of teams, Ferrari included, Ferrari and BMW, got in trouble for that. For the 24 of beating their BOP pace in the 24, so they got a hefty penalty for that. Digressing back to the race, Lindner leads it in GTP, but it's Felipe in second place. That Cadillac number 9, they have the quickest lap in that category, a 12.7 1:06.9, the quickest lap set thus far for them today. That's not the quickest lap in the race, of course. But, Felipe just setting the quickest lap, trying to keep pace with Lindner. Lindner disappearing up in front of the road. This is the cockpit cam of Billy Octane, the 333, or the double 3 on this particular occasion. Sometimes runs a 333, trying to get by Leach. You can see Daly, the blue car in front, locking up into Andretti hairpin. Here comes Leach, can't quite get there in time. That is a Cadillac inside a Porsche sandwich.
The camera that we're using right now, the cockpit cam, really shows just how much Laguna Seca kind of leans to the left and to the right. It really feels like watching somebody on a roller coaster.
It feels like that driving it too. It's absolutely insane. I don't think a lot of people, other than the corkscrew, I don't think people think about the elevation change and the undulation of this racetrack, but it is all over the place. From cambered corners and there's flat corners, and you fall off several cliffs like we're going to watch this right here. Coming down into the hairpin, unsighted when you turn back to the right. A little ginger there by Billy Octane. I think they're not wanting to over-rotate the car. Didn't quite hit the apex, maybe trying to stay away from that for the tires, and just aiming for the middle of the road. You lose a little time doing that, but it's not the end of the world because you're so close to the cars in front of you. The time you would gain is negligible. You'd have to back off anyway. So Billy Octane now right onto the back of Leach, was able to close up in the final couple of corners. Of course, Leach getting backed up by Daly, who's made their way back up to P3. Remember the earlier incident in the final turn that set all that up. And something has happened to Peter Roche in the LMP2 class. Dykstra is now the leader, the 888 Dallara in front of Heilman, who has made their way back up to P2. And this is the replay, the leading CLR car of Roche, and it's another GTD incident.
I don't know really what Roche was thinking there. Diving in directly in front of a GTD car and then immediately locking on their brakes. That's just not a smart move. Patience, patience, patience through the corkscrew is going to be what gets you through this. Wait until there's an opening, use the car's superior speed, and take advantage of it.
Oh, and that's Ted Edwards sliding out there in the HWT machine, the number 8 HWT machine. But that was the thing, Sarah, that the drivers, when I talked to them, they all said, all the prototype drivers said the same thing. I'm worried about the other class being as quick as I am because of the relative non-existent pace difference. But as far as the GTD class, I'm concerned about braking zones because they can brake later and they might judge it wrong because I'm in front of them. But that's a situation, like you said, you've got to be aware of as a prototype driver to not fall back in line in front of a car that can outbrake you like that. You can't do it that quickly anyway. If that GTD car is following you and they hit you, then that's a whole other story. But that's not really the case of what we saw there.
Absolutely. It's unfortunate because you don't want to see drivers ever get hit. You want that clean racing because that clean racing is fast, it's exciting. When drivers start hitting each other, we start seeing drivers slow down because they have aero damage, and it's not fun for the driver, it's not fun for the fans, it's not fun for us in the booth. We don't want to be up here talking about how drivers are slamming into the back of each other. We want to talk about these amazing battles and exciting kind of races.
Certainly is. A couple of battles still going on. Heilman has climbed the mountain. Remember, that car qualified pole, went back to 4th on the opening couple of turns, and here they are, the 796 of Heilman, the green car, several tones of green, and a little bit of, I don't know if that's blue or purple, whatever it is, right on the back of the yellow car of Dykstra, who has taken over the lead. 3 different leaders out of the 5 cars in LMP2, none of them taking hold of it. We've seen that this season. We saw that a lot as well at VIR, where the driver in the lead was the one that was making the mistakes. We've seen that here today in the LMP2 class, where whoever is leading that class has not held on to the lead for long. Heilman trying to reaffirm the lead for the first time since the start of the race.
And because of that, you know, we have to understand on the tracks that are small like this, with plenty of room for error, there's that pressure to hold on to that lead. holding onto that lead kind of means that you have that air Freddy that's nice and clean until you come up on lap cars, of course. And by kind of pushing themselves maybe a little too hard, they get the spin out, they hit the little things, stuff like that, and it just results in lost time. When if they just drove smooth and clean and kind of maybe lost a little bit of time here or there, they'd still make out way better than a single spin out. Right now we're seeing Hellman really put the brass tacks to Dykstra right now, seeing that kind of pressure to try to see if he can make them make any sort of mistake. That sort of mistake might be just enough for them to sneak past somewhere here, right up against the back of that car. Amazing to see.
LMP2s was told that these cars around this racetrack in particular, in general, LMP2 cars are quite tight. They almost underturn. They've got significant aero on them and power, and it makes it feel like they understeer a bit more than other cars do. This racetrack, I always felt in these cars, exacerbated that feeling. It makes you feel like you're trying to turn the Exxon Valdez around. And it's not the case, but that's what it feels like in the moment. And to be following so closely like that, that is actually quite impressive, because you got the aero wash as well, and taking away some of your grip. You're probably damaging the tires a little bit in an LMP2 car following as closely as Heilman was a lap ago. It's not quite as bad at this distance, so maybe that was by the by. Oh, a little bit of a lockup there from Dykstra. That's going to allow Heilman to close in. That prolonged Dykstra's forward momentum. He wanted to turn left. Anytime you lock up, you just sort of spear off straight, and that allowed Heilman to close back in, but to no avail here. Not quite close enough to make anything of it. And had he been as close as he was a lap ago, Sarah, he probably could have made the pass there.
It's possible, though. Being as close as he was, he might have also just gone into the back end of them. We were seeing there through that last corner there before where they were practically kissing each other's bumpers. This is the exciting kind of racing. No hitting, but absolutely door-to-door that just kind of gets the blood flowing. Absolutely.
I always refer to racing as a 200-mile-an-hour chess match. Here is Lep, who I believe has been in some drama here in the final turn, and yeah, just couldn't get it stopped, went off into the dirt, and hopefully they're able to rejoin without further incident. They have it saying that they have returned to the garage, the number 18 Cadillac, and I believe it is. I think that is a sign of how frustrating it was for Lep today. They have retired the car. That is, I don't believe that's the first retirement that we've had thus far here today. Tom Bryant nearly coming into a calamity of their own in the Andretti hairpin, just about locking up the HWT Dallara before they get it going the right way.
They had a little bit of a lockup as we saw a little bit of rubber left behind there, and that was Tom Bryant we just saw there. And in terms of earlier DNFs, I believe Ada Wolf was actually the first one. So you can see they're 9 laps back right now, while Lep was 4 to 5 laps back when they DNF'd. And now we're also seeing T. Anderson also having DNF'd.
But wait a minute. I'm unsure of what we're going to see here. This looks completely normal. This is a long replay, by the way, folks. This looked normal. The car doesn't look in any distress at all here. It looks perhaps slightly slower, a little bit more cautious perhaps, but nothing odd going on here. But yeah, Ada Wolf, of course, retiring in GTD. I might have misspoke. Lep, the first retirement in GTP is what I meant to convey. But Anderson has since then retired in the GTD category, and that's who we are following here, that Lamborghini. And we believe it retires at some point. Still in a replay here. Is in the hairpin, I believe.
I'm watching just as much as you are here. I'm waiting for something to happen.
Anticipating. Well, the cars are.
I'm just full of antissa.
Very funny. I think that's
patient.
I knew you were going to do that. I think that's Merchant closing in on them in the race. Oh yes, off in the penultimate corner there, and now that's interesting. He's going to drive the 221 Redline sponsored Lambo into the pit lane and just retire it as Anderson. Very odd.
Usually when we
You
see
think-
drivers retire, they just go off the edge to say, I'm done, you know?
Sarah, do you think that Anderson got a drive-through or a penalty for hitting the incident limit, and that's what caused them to retire them?
I'm guessing that it's very much likely that. We don't have information about drivers doing that right now, but I can definitely say it's looking like,
Oh, man!
wow!
That was very ballsy. A high-risk, high-reward maneuver, but no friend made to Bart Macha in that Ferrari at all. That was Macha who very nearly got ate up by Mr. Heilman. Heilman looking to the outside, looking back down to the inside, closed off there by Roche, trying to make it work down the inside now is Roche, trying to keep that position. Roche trying to get back through here and potentially take the lead. That will release Dijkstra. Heilman a little upset, probably got squeezed in by some of that GTD traffic, and now has lost second place again in this race to a charging Peter Roche.
Wow, Peter Roche is absolutely showing just a masterclass on defense, heading through Andretti hairpin there. That was super great watching them be able to hold Hellman off. Keep it up. Keep battling for both drivers. We love to see it. We're side by side right now, heading right up into corkscrew. This is going to be interesting seeing how this goes. Looks like Roche is going to give it up to Heilman, avoid a potential crash through it, see if he can get it back a little bit later on.
That's super impressive. Neither driver locked up, and that's normally something we see in a race like that. Whenever you're drag racing somebody down to the corner, you're basically playing corner chicken, and neither one of the drivers locked up. Very composed out of the both of them, and they both caught back up to Dijkstra, who I believe must have had some form of drama, some moment earlier on in that lap whenever Heilman and Roche were side by side. Roche got a little sideways off the final turn. That was probably a 1X as well. Jordan Daly, meanwhile, has brought their GTP down to the pit lane.
Wow, just, it's really starting to kind of pick up. Now that we're about half an hour nearly into this race, we're seeing drivers getting a little bit more greedy, a little bit more thirsty to see if they can get those positions. Hopefully, we continue to see such amazing driving throughout the race.
It's an interesting pit stop by Daly there. I wonder if they're running the race backwards in their GTP. We haven't seen a lot of that. That is how, in most IMSA racing, that you would do it in a race like this. You would come in early, run the race backwards. You wouldn't pit halfway through. Some teams are gamblers. They will come in at the last possible moment. We've seen a bit of that in this series as well. And something has happened to Daly, just as I say that they were exiting the pit lane, and I do worry that potentially cold tires have gotten the best of them. This is Daly on his out lap. He's heading up the hill. Yep, cold tires on the curb. And our first considerable smack didn't quite make it to the corkscrew, and its impact on many corners of that car as they're trying to get it going. And Daly has just realized how damaged that 197 car is, and that may result in a DNF for Daly.
You hate to see it, absolutely, especially when we have a fast repair. But being behind already in that race, they probably saw, even with a fast repair, there's not really much of a chance for them to kind of make up those positions. Still hate to see it, though.
It's a rough race. It's one that I definitely had circled on the calendar almost immediately. I thought this was going to be a, for lack of a better term, a bit of a bloodbath. This is not a track where multi-class typically gets along a lot. IMSA does come here, and they do multi-class here, and it is often a nerve-wracking race to watch. I can only imagine what it would be like to participate in that level of competition here. But that being said, these drivers are likely, the most of them are experiencing this for the first time. There is almost no data for the GTP car around this racetrack. Super hard to find any setup data, any setup notes for the car. the LMP2 data that they have, because the car is a little bit older, they have it, but it's slightly out of date. There's been tire revisions and all that since the last major update to the LMP2 notes for that car. So they're kind of in the same boat. The unknown pool, the GTD cars, complete opposite of that. That's a known commodity here. GTD or GT3 races here quite regularly, so it's not quite nearly the headache as it is in the other two classes. A lot of guessing going on with the setups in the top two classes.
Absolutely. I think I've been around here twice in the LMP2s during a regular iRacing year, but definitely not enough to really dedicate full kind of setups to for an actual competitive race. Those are like the, you know, the short 20-minute kind of burst things, nothing like this.
Drivers will tell you 20 minutes around here feels like an hour anywhere else, and I can kind of commiserate with that. This is a racetrack that it looks unassuming most of the time, but it beats you up. It beats you up mentally because there's not a single moment around Laguna Seca where you're not focused on a corner, because if you sort of let off for a moment, you have messed up the corner. You have to be pinpoint precise to be quick around here. It's a unassumingly quick racetrack where trouble can happen instantaneously in a moment if you aren't paying full attention. Sindelar has caught Leach for third in the GTP class. Didn't quite get him on the hill and down the corkscrew that time, but right behind them, Heilmann, after dispatching of Roche for the second time today, has caught Dykstra again, and it continues there. I wouldn't call it quite an assault. Heilmann's not really going for it here. I think Heilmann's trying to pressure Dykstra into a mistake.
Absolutely, and that's really the kind of strategy when you have two drivers that are really matched in skill and speed. The only thing you really can do is pressure each other, but at the same time avoiding driving on the gravel. This is not dirt. This is not World Rally Championship. Keep the car on the pavement.
Hearing a update from Daly on the retirement, they did use their fast repair on their pit stop. I'm assuming that was a purposeful pit stop, trying to essentially run the race backwards on pit strategy. Again, a common tactic in sports car racing, and must have had just a tiny bit of damage on that. That used up their fast repair. It automatically selects that for repairing damage the first time. You have to knowingly unselect it. You wouldn't normally have to fool with it if you didn't think you made contact. It's not a big deal. Apparently there was contact at some point. They used a fast repair, and that's what led to Daly's DNF. There would have been many laps down there. Close right there between these two cars, Merchant and Rowe, both in Audis, and Merchant wins that battle. Oh, what in the world? What in the world? Daniel Merchant looked like they were coming down pit lane, couldn't spot it, and ducked back out of pit lane at the last possible second there. It's like he lost where the pit road entry was.
Holy moly, these drivers have been going side by side since way back in the corkscrew. What in the world? That was absolute. Oh,
this is
goodness
dangerous.
Gracious.
We got no, it's just two different classes of car. This is the top three in LMP2 making their way around the GTD traffic, and that is a scary moment there. I still don't know what happened to Daniel Merchant there. He was definitely sliding over like he was coming down pit lane, and at the last second realized that he either wasn't going to make pit lane or that he couldn't slow the car down enough. One way or another, got back out there, just about stayed in front of Rowe. The LMP2 cars come through, and almost a gift to Merchant widens that gap out because Rowe had to basically step on the brakes to keep from running into one of the LMP2s. Meanwhile, the three of them continue along, and these three, Leach, Sindelar, and Octane, all fighting over third and GTP again.
What an absolutely clustered together track. We've been seeing this from the very beginning, and we knew right away that this is not going to be a track with drivers spread out all the way through it. We're going to see lots of clustering up through various choke points on this track where the track gets much thinner. We're seeing a lot of gravel hitting here. I don't know when we're going to see it, but we're definitely going to be seeing some drive-throughs today.
Yep, certainly have. Unconfirmed that we may have had one earlier on, but it's plausible, but I don't think if that was the first, and even if it wasn't, we'll certainly see more of those as we go on here. Peter Roche has re-caught up to the back of the train for the lead and potentially the win, and has made the pass again. That is the third change here. CLR back in P2 with Peter Roche behind the wheel, that car. CLR standing for Connection Lost Racing. None of that going on. None of that funny business here today. Benjamin Heilman now falling off the back a little bit, fighting with the grip. Talked about how tight the car was previously and overdriving just a little bit, trying to keep up. Dijkstra still has somehow, Sarah, survived the onslaught to this point.
Absolutely shocking. And I also just want to, I have a little voice in me here telling me that, in fact, CLR stands for calcium, lime, and rust. You can get it at your local Kmart.
Sarah, nobody. Anyway, we're having a private conversation now. Hello, everybody. If you just joined us, welcome to the madness that is IMSA here at the Laguna Seca circuit here south of the bay in California. Contact there. Benjamin Heilman's going to go around that contact with Piotr Dominicus, who I didn't think was here today. I was very much incorrect. Looks like Heilman rejoined. Piotr will oblige and hit the brakes to keep from having additional contact. Roche just comes off the apex a little bit, taps your pole sitter at LMP2 around.
Absolutely not what you want to see. LMP cars, getting door to door with these GTD cars and then proceeding to dangerously re-enter the track right in front of the same GTD car that just got hit. Not good. Not good awareness. I understand it's frustrating and you're battling for drivers, but you gotta keep your awareness levels up. It's hard though, especially in these LMP2 cars where you have very little field of vision. You feel like a horse with your blinders on when you drive these things.
It really is. These things have huge A-pillars. I mentioned that briefly earlier, but when you were riding on board, you could very clearly see that the cone of vision that you have very much restricted. They have cameras on the race car. Yeah, look at that. The A-pillar, which is what we refer to these giant columns on either side of the front of the car. They're absolutely massive. When they get in your way, and it really hurts your visibility. It helps you focus on what's in front of you, but it hurts you every other which way. It's so hard to see out of an LMP2 car. The GTPs are a little bit better as far as viewing is concerned, but LMP2 is absolutely horrible for your vision. Of course, you have all sorts of cameras in there to help you with all of that. The wing mirrors, by the way, in case you're wondering, are there for regulation purposes. You almost never can see out of those when you're strapped into a LMP2 car. So that is there simply because for safety reasons and due to the regs, it must be there.
Guessing it's a legacy to kind of avoid people getting run over if you're in the car while you're in the pits or something of the sort. Because I can't really think of any other reason they're there. There's no way to see them through the A-pillars.
Yeah, I mean, you can, if you are really lucky and have the dexterity, you can sometimes glance maybe half of the mirror. Very, very late lockup there by the 8 of Ted Edwards it was. Just about avoiding incident, shaking the car out as Ted Edwards as they're making their way through the field, flashing with lights from one of the GTPs making their way through. Daniel Merchant has been caught again by Rowe. They will reignite that fight for the second or third time tonight.
What an exciting race. We haven't had to talk about mayonnaise more than once.
Well, I mean, I will. I will talk about mayonnaise. Hey, this is a PSA from your boy Jesse Lee. If you're eating Miracle Whip, you ain't eating mayonnaise. Anyway, back to the racing. Ted Edwards had a very scary moment there. So easy in a car that doesn't have ABS to lock up the tires, and you're along for the ride at that point. but somehow, some way, was able to slide that car down the inside and keep from making contact with another class of car. Super scary moment there, but certainly one that happens. Heilman, after the incident, of course, still in third, but has been left by the wayside. The top two, Dijkstra and Roche. And something interesting, we've been joined by Maciej Heila in the chat, who is cheering on Justin Dijkstra in the Triple Eight, the current leader in their class.
How confusing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder, Heila not in the race today. I don't think they've retired from the championship. They just signed out from the race today, which is a thing you can do here at RCI. Maybe avoiding this race altogether, perhaps. If so, that's an excellent use of the sign out, in my opinion, protecting yourself, so to speak. But maybe Heila just wants a championship fight with Dijkstra in the final couple of rounds.
It's a bold move. Let's see if it pays off.
I like it. Leach into the pit lane. Sindelar was in the lap prior, and they are the first of the pitters that are still out on the racetrack. Filippi has driven off of the track in the final corner. That will be more incident points for them. Keep in mind, all the drivers working on an incident point limit like you do in iRacing. And over that limit, you're going to get a big, fat, extra trip down the pit lane. Nobody wants that, but we do fear as the time grows shorter in this race. It's over halfway now, and we will see that more and more prevalently. And that right there, by all accounts, by our measure, Sarah, that was another 1X.
Absolutely. Driving right off into that gravel is going to result in that. And another thing worth noting is that these cars, the GTPs, with that hybrid engine, they have a ton of torque at really initial kind of acceleration, which is a little bit scary when you're coming off of the gravel because it's very, very easy to spin that car out at that point.
That is a really big problem too. You have a very fast, torquey race car and you try to power out of the grass. If you're in a GT3, you can almost get away with it a lot of the time. In a prototype, absolutely not the case. You haven't seen the leader in GTD at all today, so here they are. Janjic leads. It leads by almost a mile, 23 seconds the gap back to Ruth in P2. It's a 1-2 for Porsche thus far. Macha is in third currently, but this is your leader in GTD. We haven't seen him, and as broadcasters, we always tell you there's two reasons why we don't show you in a broadcast. You're either too far out front or you're too far behind. Janjic, luckily, is the former.
And sometimes it's better to be not on camera. There's a lot of people who really subscribe to the idea of what they call the commentator's curse.
Sure. Absolutely.
And while I have you, Jesse, and your Yella, as the chat has pointed out, I have been down here enough that somebody caught me saying soda the other day instead of pop, and another person caught me saying y'all.
Well, you'll be one of us someday soon. I can promise you that. A mistake there by Dijkstra in the final turn, and that's going to allow Roshu. A lap ago was 1.5 seconds off of the back of Dijkstra, and one more mistake. We've seen Justin have a few off tracks, and it hasn't been them to this point, but it has this time. Peter Roche back to the lead in the LMP2 category for CLR.
Really, really seeing how CLR tackles that calcium lime and rust and tackles the racetrack just as well.
Oh dear, oh dear. Oh, what's your favorite Southern phrase or saying? Do you have one, or do you?
Oh, I love "bless your heart." I love that.
Yeah,
it's
because
so,
it doesn't mean what you think it means, right?
Exactly. And the amount of people I see who take that on the internet as a positive thing, oh goodness.
Yeah, we have a similar one up here, and it's the modern version of "bless your heart" is "bless." Where somebody says something a bit silly, and you go, "Oh, bless," and same thing, completely same meaning. Still lost on a lot of folks. Roof into the pit lane, surrenders P2 in GTD for the moment. That promotes Macha and his driver, Pietro Dominicus, who's had a wild one thus far, into third for the time being. We have, of course, had the majority of the GTP field in. It's about feeding time for them anyway. The majority of those cars do come in around the halfway point. That seems to be the favorite strategy this season. And Billy Octane, most recent pitter, is coming out of the pit lane. They'll drop all the way back down to fifth. In fact, the only GTP that hasn't pitted is your leader, Lindner.
Which is quite a bit of a surprise. And on the topic of coming in for a feeding, I like to just imagine someone with one of those little large shakers of fish food, and just shake it on top of the cars when they arrive into the pits.
Ooh, a lock up there by Dykstra, as that is quite common. It wasn't a lot. It didn't cause any puff of smoke, but you can see the tire physically lock on that race car. But I do think of it in a very similar fashion, Sarah. I think of a crew chief trying to goad a driver to come down pit lane, maybe not fish food, but come down pit lane. We'll give you a nice bottle of water. We got you like nice cold water. We got that going.
Maybe like a corn dog as well. A corn dog feels
Yep.
like a food you could eat in a car, you know?
The Days of Thunder reference of you can't come down pit lane because we're eating ice cream.
Ah, that's a
Get him to
classic
come down
one.
pit lane. That was brilliant. Oh, has Tom Bryant had an incident, or was he just a little bit too inside there? We'll see. He's definitely got Ted Edwards, his teammate, right behind him, and he certainly wasn't a moment ago. So here's the replay. Tom Bryant coming down the corkscrew, locked it up, came down the rally crossway, and that allowed Ted Edwards to catch back up, and Ted Edwards has now passed Tom Bryant. Or was it the other way around, in fact? I'm unsure which way it was. The cars are identical, but you saw one of the HWT cars go off into the dirt. It was passed by the other one. Now they're both in pit lane, rendering that all completely hopeless, rather besides.
I hope everybody out there is having a wonderful day watching this race. Right now we have the Audi here of Rowe. He is just seeing if he can sneak up on that bright yellow car of Marshawn. Just absolutely garishly yellow. Burns a hole in my eyes.
Tom Bryant reporting the reason for the pit. They had a puncture, and yeah, he had a tire puncture coming into the pit lane as well, and had no right front tire at all, down to the cords on that particular racing tire. And thank you, Tom Bryant, for that report. Thank you to Daly as well for your report earlier on in the day. We do enjoy. We're quite spoiled here with our mid-race reports. But yeah, I'm looking at Tom Bryant's tire data right now, and that tire's dead, Fred.
I don't think I've ever seen a tire get punctured in iRacing before. I've seen a couple in ACC, but never in iRacing. It's always been known that iRacing tends to have the more resilient tires, so it's quite impressive the amount of damage that must have been done. Probably, I guess, a lot of lockups or just dealing with a lot of having to kind of pump the brakes to deal with other drivers around them on what is a very tight track.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it the last few weeks. In fact, it caught a lot of the drivers off guard as well, that you can have tires go flat and punctures, and it's something that you normally, a lot of the time, you wouldn't really experience, but that is the nature of it. A lot of drivers being thrown sort of off by some of the oddities that have occurred this season. Lindner, by the way, has not come in as the leader of GTP. This is one of the longest runs for the GTP category that we've seen all season to this point. And that's very interesting to me. If they make it another 3.5 minutes without coming in, Lindner that is, that might be the longest GTP run we've had. Benjamin Heilman has just had an incident, and they're still currently having said incident, and that was the curb for Billy Octane. We warned about the giant red sausages and that's the first culprit. Fortunately, that car was able to slow down quite a bit before the incident, or before it became a bigger incident. And this is in the same corner, but this is Heilman out of third in LMP2. Just over rotates, goes for a wild ride there.
Wow, I'm definitely thinking that Howman is probably thinking that he wants off Mr. Bones' wild ride after that little maneuver.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You saw two different classic cars have very different incidents. I think Heilman just carrying way too much speed through there, trying to make up some time, and now it has all sort of come undone. Although the Delta tracker seems to indicate that they are gaining time still, even after the long slide into the dirt. But Roche now close to pit stop. Enjoys a 5.5 second lead on Justin Dykstra for the lead in LMP2, and the top four in GTD have not come to pit lane. Jonjic, Dominicus, Mead, and Merchant. Is Daniel Merchant? Is he Canadian? Because if he's Canadian, I'm just thinking about my pronunciation versus yours. And I suspect if he's Canadian, it is Merchant.
I am researching this right now. Give me a moment.
Yeah, we're gonna get to. Have I been pronouncing his name wrong for 4.5 years accidentally? I should have known that. Either way, there is Daniel Merchant's car. You can tell it's Daniel Merchant's car because it's got his name on it, and I suspect because it has a Twitch and a
He is
YouTube
French
button. So it is Merchant or Merchant. Either way.
Whichever go ahead and get back to us, please. We can tell you have a bright yellow car. Hopefully you have a bright yellow voice. You can tell us all about it.
You can,
nice and sunny.
You can also visit his YouTube and Twitch channel, Daniel Merchant on the car. If more drivers were more considerate and just put their name on the car, that would make our
with a
job
pronunciation
incredibly trivial. Yeah, I will need the phonics of that on there, Daniel, next week if you don't mind, sir. Merci. Dykstra, here he is in the 888, former leader in LMP2, trying to skirt the outer boundaries of the racetrack and trying to claw back some of that 5.5 second gap. Heilman, despite all the trials and tribulations that the 796 has had today, just set the quickest lap in LMP2. It was a 13.9, or 13.8 rather, 13.809. And that in comparison to what the other drivers in front of him were driving, they were about a second off of that pace, a second slower, that is. So Heilman, despite the fact that they're 21 seconds back, still the quickest car. And if you're going to make up a second a lap thereabout, it's not over yet in LMP2. Roof in 5th place in GTD, right on the back of Merchant. I do apologize to any French-speaking person listening. I absolutely butchered that either way, but Daniel Merchant is how we would pronounce that in English, and trying to stay in front of Roof, but hasn't been able to accomplish that. Roof straight on through. Merchant not really giving a fight there to the Porsche as they're able to get through and drive away. You see the 888 of Dykstra trying to drive themselves and making their way just fine as that gap continues to widen out between Roche and Dykstra. Ooh, a little bit off the track there for Roof though.
So I just went and directly asked them because they do have a Twitch account.
This
Merchant.
Is live reporting, folks. Oh my God, it's pronounced Merchant.
I believe it's Merchant. It's hard to tell. They were kind of looking over at their thing, and I did not want to distract them further. I will double check after the race.
Well, shout out to Daniel Merchant and shout out to our newest field reporter, apparently, Sarah Stan. She does it all, folks. She commentates.
He's not French, but he says he's French.
Ladies and gentlemen and others, we have just got a new report. Daniel Merchant, who nationality registers as French, is not actually French, as the number 8 car of Ted Edwards has to hit the old escape key. And in the form of that, visits the sand trap. Ted Edwards is not pleased by that, flashing the 2 other cars. But yeah, we have just learned Daniel Merchant, French, but also not French. Wow.
I am
Absolute
dying
bombshell.
over here. Please send help.
Shout out to Sarah Stant, who apparently you just became an investigative journalist. Both Sarah and Ash Bibby dying of laughter here. Oh, that was not a laughing matter there as the GTPs come through on Merchant. The French but not French driver in 5th place in GTP.
Oh my goodness. Glad to find out the correct way of saying it, because you absolutely hate to say a driver's name wrong. And if you're watching right now, make sure that if you have a name that isn't necessarily said right, maybe you've had trouble in the past with people saying your like last name or first name, please give us a pronunciation guide. We will love if you do that, and we will say your name correctly. We are consummate professionals here.
Yeah, maybe if your name's not Roof and it's Ruoff, you let me know. In 3rd place here. It's pronounced both ways in America, that name, and most commonly it's Roof, but it is also pronounced Ruoff. We actually have a quite famous company in this country called Ruoff, but it's spelled the exact same. It can be quite confusing. Heilman on a little bit of a tear, and I mentioned that because that was the car making their way through Ruoff here, or Roof. I'm getting it mixed up. I'm psyching myself out either way. Heilman has regained 2nd place. Dykstra has made a mistake somewhere out there on the race course, and Heilman has continued to make some hay. They're not making up a second a lap, though. They did run the quickest lap in the class, did the 796 Delar pictured here, but that last lap they were a second slower. Was that a car off? It is. It's Sindelar, 4th place in GTP. They're backwards at the end of the corkscrew. Ooh, just lost it.
Hate to see it. Absolutely hate to see it.
You do. I will say, Sarah, are you surprised by the amount of incidents that haven't resulted in trips into the wall today? I think the drivers have done quite a good job of they've had their mistakes, surely, but they've been able to escape them with nothing more than a little bit of time and tire damage.
I mean, while this is a fairly narrow track, there really is only, I can think of, 2 places you could reasonably go into the wall from a mistake on this track. There is just so much gravel trap, so much room, and while it's not like a real life gravel trap that's going to really arrest your momentum, it still does slow you down enough to not kind of find yourself in the wall. And one of those places is the corkscrew, and that is where we're seeing drivers, unfortunately, ping pong.
Yep, you've seen a lot of, I wouldn't call them lazy slides necessarily, but they're not snap slides. They're just sort of pretty standard, sort of lock it down and let it finish, and then, put it back in gear and get it going sort of affair. We've seen that a lot today, and I think a lot of that is fear of going off too deep or backing it into a wall. You mentioned very early on, Sarah, that if you lose the wing in these cars, that's a lengthy repair. You're not going to drive that car like that anyway. It's going to be almost undrivable. So you're going to have to pit for repair. That would be a lengthy repair. And I think maybe the fear of that in a lot of these prototype drivers is what's leading to them when they get themselves into trouble. It really is just about survival. Just don't do any damage to the body of the machine.
Exactly. And unfortunately, if you can mostly, I mean, we used to say that as long as only the tires were kind of a little bit scuffed up, you'll probably be fine. But given the changes to the iRacing tire model, we're seeing flats through multiple races now. That may not hold true anymore. You may have to have drivers who, you got to respect these tires a lot more, otherwise you're not going to finish the race.
I've always said I'd rather you have a flat tire than a flat body panel, and what I mean by that is pancaking into the wall, doing major damage to the car. It's easier to change that tire than it is to change, realistically it isn't actually, because of the way the front and rear clips work on a prototype. it's about the same to change a tire, but in iRacing sense, it's a lot easier to change a flat tire than have to put a new wing on the race car. Ideally, you won't do either, but if I had the choice, give me the flat tire every day.
100%. I have to agree, provided that that flat tire also doesn't cause you to spin out and lose your wing too.
True. As Benjamin Heilman just had a little bit of an off. I think they might have, but they were off for a moment, and their number, their position and class indicator was lit up yellow. I don't know how to say yellow correctly. For longer than it would have taken to get off and on the racetrack. It didn't blip. It was more like a constant yellow for a moment, and I think they maybe just went a little bit wide there and just continued to ride out the momentum because there's nothing wrong with the 796. Sometimes the way iRacing works, the sort of waved yellow is so quick that it can throw you for a loop. Heilman is coming in though to pits, and he just about gets it turned before he hits the wall.
Wow, I can't believe that he managed to keep that out of the wall. Hopefully he's going in to change those tires in his pants while he's at it.
I don't have in-car radio for Heilman, but I know he probably said a word that I won't repeat in German. Starts with an S, though, in both languages.
I don't think saying Scheiße is something that we have to worry about saying on this stream.
You... Ash Bibi, the multicultural man, has now added what that word is in other languages. Thank you, Ash Bibi. You are a encyclopedia and wealth. You are a fountain of knowledge. Shout out to Ash, who is putting on all of these races all season long so that we can bring it to you here on RCI TV, and also a linguist, as it turns out. Lock up there from Sindelar. That wasn't the first time we saw the number 50 Porsche do that. If he's having it his way, he's doing it with a brief lockup into some of these corners. You can tell he's sort of on edge with that brake pedal.
Absolutely, and you kind of have to be with this kind of car. I mean, it's if you're not kind of careful about getting that foot ready to brake, you're gonna end up in the back of another car. Oh, a little bit of a lockup there.
Yeah, he's continuing to do that, and every time he does that, folks, that's doing a little bit more damage to the tire. That car behind him is not actually for position. That's a car that I believe he's being lapped by. Billy Octane has DNF. They have retired the 33 Porsche in the GTP category. 3 of the 7 GTPs have retired thus far. That's not particularly uncommon in these races. One good hard knock on those cars, and it is all over the fragility of the GTP platform. Of course, this is a little bit in front of Sindelar, and by a little bit I mean an entire lap. Felipe 40 seconds behind P1, but sort of on their own. This is prime John Dalton zone for Felipe today.
Absolutely, and on the topic of braking, it's important to remind the viewers here that with the GTP cars, one of the big defining differences between them and the LMP2 is that hybrid drive. And part of that hybrid drive means that when these drivers are applying their brakes, the first little bit of the brake pedal is actually just regenerative braking. And if you've ever had a chance to drive an electric car, you'll know that regenerative braking feels substantially different than the more biting feeling of a brake pad.
Very good insight there. That's absolutely true. And there's an audible cue in the GTPs as well. You can hear it. You can hear it when it's discharging and when it's charging as well. And it's just something, I think I'm right in saying, it's just something that you have to get a feel for. And the only way to really understand it is to, well, go out there and do it. And you'll figure out where you need to be and how much, I mean, they've got, it's not fixed setup, so they've got options for how much energy they expend as well. So all that's per driver preference and what they want to be doing out there on the track. So all of that, GTP drivers dealing with that, their regenerative batteries for their hybrid drives. Dykstra drove off the racetrack for a moment, but no major issue there. But yeah, GTD, the place to go if you just want to drive the race car. Everybody else dealing with a little bit something different. LMP2, a little bit easier go of it than the GTP. A little less things to think about, but again, no ABS in these cars. You've got to brake them appropriately. We've seen that go wrong a few times here today. Do that too much. Talk about flat spotting tires, maybe flattening a tire completely, unfortunately, as we've been come to know that is a possibility here in this series.
Absolutely. And last thing you want to really be doing is driving around on those square Flintstone tires. That's really going to make a track like this so hard to drive on. It's going to make you go through corkscrew, and when you try to apply the brakes, the car is going to be bouncing slightly, which means your car is not biting. You're not getting as good regenerative braking. You're not getting as good actual braking. It's just going to result in just really bad experiences through some of these more dangerous corners.
I've got one for this, Sarah. And if you walk out after this, I fully understand. I agree. That's a yabba dabba dome.
I yabba dabba agree.
Let's go. Oh, man. Lindner, 42.5 seconds in front in GTP. Peter Roche has finally asserted, or reasserted, I should probably say, dominance in LMP2. 30 seconds there about the gap in that category. Janjic has never not been the leader in this race in GTD. But what has happened here to Sindelar? Remember, we saw the 50 earlier with brakes locking up and also another spin at the bottom of the corkscrew, and that's really just being too far to the inside and putting too much wheel into it. As you're doing that, some of the GTP drivers talked about that it can be, if you hit it wrong, potentially sketchy just going down those 5 stories.
Having such a quick drop too has to be just absolutely something that we can't really feel in sim racing. It's just that the gut feeling of just dropping so hard every single lap. It must be a real difficult kind of experience when you're first coming around this track.
Yeah, it is. If you've ever driven your road car down a hill, you kind of know how it feels. It's almost a weightlessness, and it's kind of like that, except that you're going 100 some miles an hour as you do that. It's an uneasy feeling for sure, but in some ways I'm glad sim racing doesn't mimic the real thing, because stuff like that is really cool and all until you're doing it for, well, let's say 80 minutes in a row, and you're trying to race people and deal with all the sensations. But I suppose there are sensations like that that would help sim racers in general, being able to feel the race car with your butt, as is the standard term for what real racing is. Of course, you in sim racing get all of your feedback through your wheel, or if you are so inclined, some pedal sets that give feedback as well. But we don't have that in sim racing, or excuse me, we don't have that in real life. In real life, you're feeling it a lot through your rear end, essentially, and your body knows how to translate that. So
I think the best way. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Jesse.
I was going.
I think the best way to describe it to people who've never felt that sort of sensation, maybe you grew up in Kansas or some other flat as hell places. Have you ever woken up an hour late for school or an hour late for work, and then there's that feeling in your stomach like that?
Yeah, it's the anxiety of, oh my goodness, I'm behind schedule. By the way, tonight's broadcast was brought to you by Kansas. Ooh, Sarah. Tonight's broadcast not brought to you by Kansas. It is brought to you, of course, by our lovely partners who, despite it all, stick with us. Shout out to AK Esports. Of course, World Tour starting up here in RCI in just 2 weeks' time thereabout. Still time to sign up your team and get involved in the World Tour for 2022. So many signups already, but of course, always room for more in RCI. World Tour 2024, and of course, AK Esports, a big part of that, helping us put on our events. For more information on how AK Esports can help you with your esports and sim racing events, go to akesports.it. Big shout out to Fanatec, who does make some of those pedals that have a little bit of rumble to them. That and more at fanatec.com. Check out their current bundles, and please use our link in the description of the video. When you do it, it lets them know that we sent you, and we appreciate that, of course. Oh, huge slide here from Ted Edwards, backwards before they ever get to the bottom of the corkscrew.
This has been some race. We have races sometimes here on iRacing and RCI where we're just spending the entire race just having to try to figure out what to talk about. And this has not been a race that has been something that we've had to struggle for things to talk about. This has been an absolute shock of a race. Drivers just barely keeping it together half the time. Enough that we've had several DNFs.
It's a rough racetrack. If you've been a long-time viewer here at RCI, you'll know that we race this track quite often in ACC, Assetto Corsa Competizione, and it's similar to that, even though those are only GT3 cars. I mean, sometimes GT4s and GT2s, but I digress. It's a similar thing. It's a racetrack of attrition. It's unassuming, but it bites incredibly hard. And talk about things to talk about. I mean, there's going to be a lot to talk about, not only for us, but for the drivers after this race. We suspect, of course, Sarah, some drivers used their sign-out tonight for this race specifically because they knew this was going to be the toughest of the series to get your head round, and perhaps just wanted to save themselves the frustration. We've seen that in ACC as well, but it's one of those racetracks as the sun is starting to tuck itself away just a little bit here, but it's a racetrack that you don't think is difficult until you drive it, and then you either chews you up and spits you out, or you learn to respect it one way or another.
While I would agree with you on maybe this being one of the more difficult ones, I would like to remind that the next track we're going to is Road Atlanta, my home track. Now, that is a track that will absolutely eat you alive. Those S's, the immediate sharp turn at the end of the long straight there, that is going to be a track where we're going to see some interesting maneuvers.
You know, I had a couple of Europeans tell me they didn't even know that track existed recently. And,
such a good track.
I was absolutely shocked. I was like, how do you not know Road Atlanta? Robley Road, maybe. I'll give you that if you don't know what that is. But Road Atlanta, the Petit Le Mans, obviously. But beyond that, just a ridiculous racetrack. You want to talk about something that feels like a roller coaster. The S's and everything there, going up the hill and then turning back down. The gigantic drop, of course, before you take the chicane, and then a secondary drop to the flag. And so many side-by-side finishes at Road Atlanta over the years. Just an incredible facility.
Absolutely, and with a very storied history that you'll hear lots of stories from me and Jesse talking about.
I have on
at the next race
neglected to mention the thing that you're going to mention next week, folks.
Oh
you're
yes,
gonna
it's
tune in.
so important.
We're gonna have story time with Sarah. And it is an incredible story about that racetrack that doesn't sound true, but is 100% a true story.
It's absolutely shocking. I look forward to telling you all about it and giving you some history on what is one of the lesser known but most storied racetracks in racing.
Ryan Leach, meanwhile, has had a humongous off at some point. I imagine they've been backwards into a sand pit somewhere, and we'll see if the third place driver in GTP has in fact done that. They're coming up the hill and into the wall, in fact, was Leach in the 711 Cadillac. You do. and that lost them some 25 seconds. They're not coming in, though. As we go back to live pictures, they are staying out, which I think is the prudent thing to do here with only 8 minutes left to go. It didn't seem like there was massive damage, and it seemed to be all localized on the driver's side of the car.
He has 8 minutes to try to keep the car together and prevent Sentinel from getting back. Though, I mean, we're looking at that time gap in between, and we're seeing that time. It's rapidly falling. We were just at 30-second gap just a second ago, and we're now already looking at only a 27-second gap. It's going to continue to fall. But how much it falls, we'll see over the rest of the race.
Well, we talked about the lack of updated or current information for GTPs and the LMP2 category here today. Well, in ACC, that's not a problem because in ACC we have Go Setups. It's your setup shop for anything, including the new GT2 cars in ACC. Get your setup pack today at Go Setups. As Benjamin Heilman has caught Dykstra for the 4th or 5th time. Lost count. He's caught them again, and this is for P2 in the class. If you're looking to brush up on your driving skills, or maybe just get a little bit more consistent out there on the racetrack, Driver 61 is the place to go. They offer one-on-one driver coaching in full-on racing schools for you over at driver61.com. Digital Motorsports is your one-stop shop for everything sim racing. All the top products from all of the top brands, and while you're there you can check out their sim rig builder. Build the sim rig of your budget or your dreams at digitalmotorsport.com.
And it's great to hear that we have all these amazing partners here at RCI. We love them all.
Certainly do. 2 races left in our calendar here as Heilman tries to go around the outside and the inside rather, and I can't note that was the outside. In fact, we were on the other side of the car and I was confused. I was confused at what we were looking at there, but no, he was on the outside, unable to get by Dykstra, who holds the inside line and beats him up the hill. They'll continue this fight as I continue to tell you about the championships we have coming up here. ACC racing going on. The Monday Touring Car and GT4 Multi-Class Series that starts this Monday on March the 4th. There's still time to get involved in that. The first racetrack they'll go to is the newest track in ACC, Red Bull Ring, for GT4 and Touring Car Multi-Class. Still time to sign up and get involved with that. We'll be live with you on Monday for that championship. Of course, Midweek Masters returns for Season 2. It's a team championship now. You must be a team of 2. No single driver entries for that series. Midweek Masters starts this Wednesday. Talked about World Tour. That starts on the 16th. A lot of teams already signed up, but the more the merrier. You are all welcome to join the World Tour for 2024. And our first round, the 4 hours of Nürburgring, and maybe next weekend we'll have a little extra iRacing for you. Sebring, 2 hours and 40-minute race. We're gonna hope to bring that to you live. They'll be racing regardless. Sebring, 2 hours, 40 minutes. All of the cars that you see here tonight for that one-off event. That is March the 9th. And still time, of course, to sign up for that KTM Masters as well. And the sign-ups for that will go live tomorrow. In fact, KTM's, and you have your choice. The KTM in the GT4 class and the GT2 Caterham. That's a multi-class series. That championship starts on March the 15th. That's very creative. We got 2 KTMs now. We've done this before with Porsches, putting multiple Porsche classes together, but now multiple KTMs. The GT4, the harder of the 2 to handle, of course. It's going to be interesting to see how they interact for that. But that is the KTM Master Series that starts up on the 15th. That's a Friday championship. Of course, Night Out. We'll be back with you on Saturday night for Night Out. round number 2 from Donington Park. Season 17 already underway a couple of weeks ago. A ton of signups for that race. I expected utter calamity at Suzuka. We didn't really get that. It was actually a lot of good racing at Suzuka. We hope to continue that here at Donington Park. Some people have called Donington, of course, the Suzuka of the UK. I kind of see it.
I feel like we should really strive to not try to compare racetracks like that. It ends up with really weird comparisons.
Yeah, I've heard Willow Springs referred to as the Nürburgring of America, and that is not right. That is incorrect. I try to be subjective here on this program, but no,
I
you're
don't.
wrong. It ain't. No, and that's why I love you, because I'll be very committal, and you'll just tell people the way it is, and we are the odd couple of sim racing.
Well, this has been such a great race so far. Really sorry to see the drivers who've gotten hit, but overall some really excited racing with only 2 minutes left. Seeing yet another moment where a driver in a GTP decides that maybe the GTD can break good enough that I can dive in front of them. Didn't end poorly this time, but yeesh. And also can't get over the choice of GTDs to have yellow lighting. That is really bizarre to me, because yellow lighting in my brain is fog lighting.
Yeah. See, that's weird. That's how my brain works. Great, we're on Daniel Merchant. I get to say this. When I think of yellow lighting, first of all, I agree with you, but I also think French cars.
Exactly.
And French road rules. Daniel Merchant, not French, as it turns out, but you wouldn't know it by looking at his nationality and his headlights, because you would think he's French.
We are definitely going to have to hear more about that after the race.
Daniel's going to absolutely crucify us after this race. If he listens to this back, he's either going to laugh like a drain, or he's going to be looking for our heads at some point.
I did go and check. In fact, you see, and yes, he does sound very English. And I don't mean that in a bad way. He just sounds like what a generic English person sounds like.
Our broadcaster, for context, who is British, has told us that Daniel Merchant sounds like the most English individual. He basically, what I've been told, Ash, and what I've conveyed from what you said as we're coming to the end of the race here, is Daniel Merchant is the narrator from Thomas the Tank Engine, because that's the most British thing I can think of. Here is Lindner coming to the line to win the race. They've not really been in doubt today. They captured the front row and they captured the win. The 47 Porsche wins it in the GTP category. What an excellent drive. Smooth, calculated, and comfortable. Well done, Lindner.
Absolutely. Congratulations. What a great ride today. And on the topic of Thomas the Tank Engine, for people who are maybe from the UK and might not know, for 5 years, George Carlin was the narrator for Thomas the Tank Engine.
Oh, Felipe, I think, is coming down to the pit lane. Now, this is interesting. I don't know why they're doing this necessarily, because surely...
Oh, no. He's going to get passed.
I don't know why he's coming in here. If he had a penalty, I don't know if iRacing disqualifies you for that if you don't attempt to serve it. If he was running out of fuel, you wouldn't come down either. He's not going to get passed, in fact. He's going to finish P2 down the pit lane, and I think he did that. I don't think anything weird happened there, other than the fact that Felipe wanted to do something a bit silly this evening.
Goodness. The only thing I can think of is that, or he had a drive-through that he had to serve on that last lap. Regardless,
that's true.
Congratulations to him to not get passed on that final lap. I see that Sindelar is several laps behind. It's that nervousness of like, wait, what is he doing? How bizarre.
Yeah, he either had a penalty or he did that for a laugh, realizing that Sindelar was over a minute behind him and it was irrelevant, and wanted to say that, hey, I got a podium by finishing in the pit lane. You don't often get to do things like that, so maybe taking their opportunity. Peter Roche was up, he was down, and he was all around, but the driver from CLR has won it in LMP2. The 404 for Connection Lost Racing gets back to the front a third time and wins the race. Janjic does the exact same, did a disappearing act on the GTD field. Janjic wins it in the number 24 Porsche in GTD.
Congratulations to him as well, and he really, really needs to slap down that email and get that sponsorship from Calcium Lime and Rust. Get that money. You won. You deserve it.
Dear, oh dear. Roof will come home P2 in GTD. Bart Macha powers his Ferrari, the only Ferrari in GTD, down in third place in that category. In GTP, your finishers are Lindner, Felipe, Sindelar, your podium, Leach, Octane, Daly, and Lep. That's the 7 cars entered there. Peter Roche wins it in LMP2 over Heilman, who did get back to P2 at least after being 4th and then 3rd, then 2nd, then 4th again earlier on in the race. Deitcher will settle for 3rd. Edwards and Bryant, the last finishers there. Janjic, Roof, Macha, Dominicus, and Mead, the top 5 in GTD. Rowe, Merchant, who's not French, Anderson, and Wolf, the 9 cars in GTD. You know what? Let's bring in our winner in LMP2. Peter Roche, you had an exciting day of racing today. You were at the front, you were in the middle, you got back to the front again. Walk us through your day.
Yeah, it was pretty much everything at once, but very surprising race, I must say, because pace-wise I wasn't feeling too confident. I felt that Heilmann would just run away with the victory, but to be fair, knowing how chaotic this race was predicted to be, I was just waiting for a chance. I mean, at the beginning, it was good to get a good start and get P1, but then I was just mad with being taken out by a GT3. I don't know if you saw that. And, oh, okay, well, then the damage thankfully was okay. It was drivable and the pace was still okay, so I was just trying to keep up with Heilmann and Dijkstra, and well, somehow managed to stay away from the mistakes. Did not get a dive through, which seemed to be the crucial thing, and managed to get a win.
You and Heilmann fought over P2 for a large part of that race. That allowed Dijkstra, who was leading at the time, to get away on several occasions. Were you ever panicked that maybe you were falling a little bit too far behind the 888 to catch back up again, or did you always know that you had enough pace to go up there and eventually get the deed done?
I was aware of it, and I was not trying to fight too much. If, for example, Heilmann had a move into a corkscrew at one point at me, and I just did not fight it. I just decided, okay, it's your place now, let's just go and try to catch P1. So yeah, I was aware of it. It wasn't like, for example, at Watkins Glen when I was fighting with Hyla and then it was just all about fighting, and I wasn't really bothered with P1.
Well, what do you think about the championship now after this result?
Well, it's gonna be quite easier, that's for sure, because Hyla did not show up for some reason today, which I am a little bit sad, to be fair, because I just wanted to have a great fight for the title. And now it seems that, well, if I will do all the races, and I plan to do that, however, who knows with my injuries in this one, what might happen, so we'll see. And yeah, let's just bring it home one step at a time.
I'm going to turn you over to my partner, Sarah Stan.
Absolutely great race today. Watching you manage to avoid getting too caught up in other people's kind of things, but still managing to eke out a really great race. Congratulations on winning your class today. I guess the biggest question I have is that I've noticed that, we have some really great Polish drivers on the track today. How does it feel being the best of them today?
Yeah, great. Great to have a lot of Polish drivers. Again, it's a bit sad that my main Polish rival, Maciej Hajla, is not here, but yeah. Well, hopefully we'll have some great fights again in the next races. But I have to say also that I'm really grateful that our category, the LMP2 category, is just so competitive, and pretty much all the time I feel like we have just a phenomenal fight for the lead. It's 3-4 cars fighting for the win, and it's just amazing to have fights like that.
All right, thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Roche, your winner today in LMP2. Congrats.
Thank you.
From LMP2 to GTP, Bastian Lindner joins us from the winner's circle here. And Bastian, you were in the eye of the storm all day. It happened all around you, but to our knowledge, it never happened to you. You had a quiet day in the office.
Yeah, it was kind of lonely. Some tricky overtakings for the lap cars, and I think I had once also a contact, but it was okay. My only goal was to stay out of trouble, and I think I have done that pretty well.
You certainly have. It's been a race. It's sort of one of those classic trap scenarios where you're all stuck in there on that small racetrack. You've all got to sort of give each other a bit of space. How you said you were just sort of trying to keep it clean. How do you do that in the fastest category of car, knowing that the LMP2 is not that far off your pace and that the GTDs have a braking advantage? How do you stay out of trouble for so long?
Yeah, to be honest, if it's getting close, I back up. That's the only thing I have done the whole race, and only overtake if it's really safe possible, because with the sand and the dust out of the track, a spin or anything else is so easy to happen. Yeah. Most of the time, use the switchback and use the horsepower of the car.
I'm going to turn you over to my partner, Sarah Stan.
All right. Well, again, congratulations on a great race today. I guess the question I have for you on this one was, how did it really feel having to deal with like the different braking issues when it comes into the corners? Because we saw a lot of drivers taking a lot of liberties into those corners, and definitely some scary moments.
Yeah, it's difficult, especially without the anti-lock system. But yeah, you see the LMP2s can sometimes brake later, and you have to deal with that. But it's good that you have much more horsepower on the straight, and that is helping a lot.
I guess the other question is when it comes to the cars with regenerative braking, how much you feel like that kind of really comes into play in terms of managing that so you don't end up locking up and kind of abusing the tires over a race?
Yeah, it's quite important to don't lock up the tires. To be honest, if I'm pretty well used to that car at the moment, so it's kind of easy, but you have to look after your tires, especially if it's getting hot. But I think the server was quite okay with the temperatures, so it was doable.
All right, thank you very much, and again, congratulations for your race.
Thank you.
Bastian Lindner, your winner in GTP. Well, we've talked to the winners in the top two categories. Let's go through to the GTD side and talk about a potential championship candidate about his day. Yannick Roof, tell us about what happened out there from your perspective in the GTD category.
No, I really don't want to. I had an incident with Peter Roche, I think it was. I clearly took him out completely on me. Very sorry, mate. Just got a bit confused in the braking zone and hit him slightly in the back, causing us both to spin. So, yeah, totally on me. Very sorry again. And yeah, also kind of ruined my own chances for the championship. So pretty unfortunate, yes.
Yet you keep going in a race like that, and obviously a mistake like that happens early. How do you shake that off mentally and get back in the zone? Because it's a long race. It's 80 minutes.
Yeah, just have to keep going and tell yourself something can happen to the leader. Just stay focused, but it's very tough, especially when you have damage. Like I had, only it was a tiny bit on the front, but still I lost at least 4 to 5 tenths per lap. So I pitted early to fix the damage, but yeah, after that it's kind of not possible to win the race out of your own strength. So you have to hope something happens to the leader, and that's all you can do. Just stay calm and finish the race and hope for the best.
I'm going to turn you over to my partner, but before we do that, how do you pronounce your last name?
Ruoff.
Okay, so it is Ruoff. All right.
Yes,
I
yes.
explained, Yannick, on the stream that in America we pronounce it both ways, so it's a 50-50 coin flip on how it's actually pronounced. I may have been calling you Roof the entire series to this point. I do apologize for that. I'm an American. I don't speak languages very well. Sarah Stan?
No worries.
Thank you very much for the assistance on the pronunciation of your name, Yannick. Overall, great race today. Thank you so much for getting a chance to come chat with us. I guess if there's any sort of thing that you want to kind of impart to other drivers out there, maybe who are kind of new to the kind of these sort of tracks, what would you give them?
The most important thing for me is always to try and stay calm, especially on those short, narrow tracks. You just have to stay calm, focused, just focus on your own driving, just think from corner to corner, apex to apex, and yeah, that's all I think. If you try to keep that doing all the time, you gotta improve, and yeah, I think that's all I can say for the new ones.
All right, thank you very much. Have yourself a great day, and
Thank you,
congratulations
guys.
again.
Thank you. Bye.
Yannick Ruoff, very seldom do we have a driver come in and throw their hands up and say, look, it was my fault, made a mistake. Mad respect to Yannick for doing that. He didn't have to do that. Nobody coerced him into that. He just obviously felt bad about that contact, and double-edged too. He thinks that maybe his championship hopes have gone. 2 races left. We'll see. Daniel Merchant, Justin, we'll get to you in a second. Daniel, I hope that you're not streaming anymore, because I'm about to say some stuff to your face.
I am a little bit still streaming, yeah. I was waiting to this.
Daniel, your icon says you're French. You're obviously British. Ash said that you're the most British human being he's ever heard in his life. When I close my mind, you're narrating Sir Topham Hatt from what's the show called again? I've already forgotten.
Thomas the Tank.
Yeah, Thomas the Tank. Thomas the Tank and Dankin.
Yeah.
Daniel, I'm going to start off with you. First of all, excellent marketing on the side of the car, I think. Absolutely
thank you very
perfect.
much.
I do love that. Do go follow Daniel Merchant on YouTube and Twitch. It's on the side of his car. It's obvious. Number 2, why are you French but not French?
The main reason was I moved out here to France when I was quite a young age. Well, youngish, sort of. I think I was about 18. And I'm now 32. My parents decided to move out from the UK. So I came out with them, and that I've stayed here ever since.
I
So
mean, I
you're-
would count that as you as being French. That's long enough there to,
No,
to
yeah,
in my
that's
personal
fine.
opinion, say you're French.
Yeah,
It's
that
long
makes
enough to
lot
have a
more
citizenship.
sense.
Yeah, no, if you're a
What-
citizenship, especially, you are French in every way, shape, or form. Don't let anybody tell you any different.
Daniel, what's actually funny about you is you have a name that could be English or French. You could be merchant, or merchant. So
Yeah.
that's what threw us for a loop. We just assumed you were French and we're English speakers, so we can't pronounce your name appropriately. But turns
Well-
out that I can't. Sorry, I'll speak for myself. Turns out you're British, but you live in France. That's quite an interesting story. Finally, tell us about your day. You were everywhere today. I feel
Oh.
like in and out of traffic. Tell us about how it went down.
I'm exhausted. I'll be honest with you. I'm sweaty and I'm just ready to go take a nap. But yeah, that was that race was quite tough. It was hard to get the car working at the beginning of the race. I decided to go with the full fuel strat and then do a short stop at the end. And I don't know if it paid off or not. I did have to save a little bit at the end, I think, because my relative was telling me that I probably should save a little bit. Other than that, the race went smoothly. The traffic was a little bit daunting. Like when some of the faster cars came up, that was a little bit daunting at times. I had a little bit of contact with a couple of them. Didn't mean to, and yeah, it was tough out there today. And I had to basically get a setup. I didn't have a Laguna Seca setup for the Audi, so I had to basically just run with it. And I went with a Aragon setup, I think it was in the end. So I don't know whether that was the right choice or not as well.
How do you feel about your championship hopes with 2 rounds left? You came in second in the title hunt. How do you feel now?
To be honest, I don't know where I am now in the championship. I haven't looked into it. Because the guy said that the only way you can look is on iRacing itself. I haven't actually seen any tables myself, to be honest. And
Yeah, I haven't seen the updated table. I only know where you came in. You came in about some 40 or 50 points off of Zorian Janjic. But I reckon you're just about still in it today.
I hope for a good round next round. Hopefully no rain as well on the horizon. Maybe. Who knows?
I hope there is.
I'm going to turn you over to my Canadian American, but somehow just Canadian partner, Sarah Stamp.
I will assure you I am both a Canadian and American citizen. On that, though, I did grow up in Canada, so that's why, like, I would say Merchant, because I'm like, okay, well, shit, I better go figure this out. I'm just on co-coms here, so I have a second to go hop over to your stream and ask you. And let me tell you, I was flabbergasted at how not French you sounded. I expected like French or maybe Quebecois, but nope.
No, definitely not French.
And unfortunately, I don't have a great question to ask about the race, but I do have a question. What is a French taco?
French taco? That is a good question. I don't know.
Everybody keeps talking about them, and you have moved there, so maybe you knew.
No,
If not,
I've never had a French taco. I don't think. No.
Well, figure out. Get back to us next race.
I really hope
will
that's
do.
not something a bit seedy.
No, it's a
Daniel
food
Merchant,
item, Jesse. It's not something inappropriate. I am a consummate professional.
I will find out for
journalist
you.
Sarah Stant. Oh, Daniel, absolute pleasure to have you. Hello to your chat as well. Thank you for participating and coming in and talking to us and setting us straight. Good luck in the final couple of races.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for the stream and commentary and everything as well that you guys do.
Good luck,
And to the
thank you very
RCI
much.
guys as well.
We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a nice
Au
evening.
revoir.
Au revoir.
See
Au
ya.
revoir.
I spoke his language. All right, finally, Justin Deister has been with us. He's been very patient this whole time. Justin, thank you very much. What a race that was. You led the entire middle stint. You somehow defended that lead from 2 other drivers. Where did it come undone just a little bit there in the end?
Yeah, I had the wrong setup. I had a VIR setup because I don't have a Laguna Seca setup, so I miss quite a bit of downforce. So yeah, that's why I was pretty slow in the high-speed corners. But yeah, for some reason, I mean, not a lot of straights, so I was able to defend. But yeah, my tire wear was abysmal, and yeah, I made a little mistake. Broke a bit too late in the last corner, and then Peter Roche was able to sail past me on the back straight right before the pit stops. And then I had quite a few X's because it's very easy to get them on this track. So I had to do drive-through at some point. Third, then Heinemann also got a drive-through, I think, because he pitted twice, but you only needed to pit once for fuel. And then he caught up to me again, and he was so much faster. And yeah, he did a great move around me in the corkscrew. I don't know if you guys caught it on the live stream, but
I believe we did.
yeah, it was insane, and yeah, I couldn't really defend there. So props to him for the overtake, and yeah, still happy with third place.
Third place indeed. And just walk me through, Justin, what it was like on that start. Heilman did not have a good start. Roche goes in the lead. You're following Roche. Roche goes off the track. You're in the lead now. They're fighting over second, third, and fourth place behind you. You drive away a little bit. I mean, what was? Were you prepared to just be patient, or I mean, what must you have been thinking? Everybody else falling off the road, and you're the only one left after a certain point in the mid part of that race.
Yeah, I don't know what happened at the start. I was fourth actually, and then yeah, because I had the inside, I was third, and then yeah, they crashed in front of me, so I was second, and then I was first, and I was like, what? I've never driven the LMP2 here before. I forgot there was a race today, so I only did qualifying as practice. I watched a quick YouTube video for the braking points. I was like, fuck, I'm in P1. What am I supposed to do now? And then yeah, tried to drive as quickly as possible, as safe as possible. But yeah, I knew I didn't have the pace, so my tactic was to just drive, and hopefully they would fight behind me for P3 and P2 and not be able to overtake me. But yeah, then I think one of them crashed or had an incident or whatever. So yeah, Roche's attention was fully onto me. So yeah, that was that.
Well, I think you're second. You didn't lose anything by finishing third here today. 2 rounds left. You still have a shot at contending this championship. I don't know if I don't know if there's a drop round officially or not, but either way, you're still in the top 3, and because you didn't finish off the podium, you're still within a shot. Do you think you can take it to the rest of the LMP2 field the rest of the way? Because you showed them today, again, that you still have something to say in this title. Do you have it for the last 2 races, do you think, to get back in it?
What are the tracks again?
We're going to Road Atlanta next week.
Road Atlanta. Well, that's a track I know pretty well. And I think the last one is Sebring then, right? It's the only American track left.
That
Correct.
sounds right.
That is correct. Yes, the final 2 tracks are Road America and Sebring.
Well,
Both 2
love
tracks I
Sebring.
love.
I love Sebring and the LMP2. I'm actually quite fast there, so I think in terms of pace, I should be able to contest them. And Road Atlanta is also one of my favorites. I was in a team with Haila last year for Petit Le Mans, and we won in the BMW in the LMDH car with like 3 laps of the whole field. So yeah, we were pretty fast. So I mean, LMP2, LMDH, pretty similar. So yeah, I think I still have a shot, but I think Roche is going to win the championship. He has so much of a points lead, but just fighting for first place in the races, definitely.
That's really cool to hear, and I have good news for you. There is no drop round, so you are in front of Haila. You are in second place in the championship now. I don't have to do the math to confirm that, but it is no drop round, so that is second place in the championship for you. I'm going to turn you over to my partner and see if she has anything to ask.
All I can say this time is congratulations. And I mean, I asked
What a
another
race.
driver what their experience, or their recommendation to newer drivers are. What is your recommendation to maybe other drivers on the track from today?
Ooh, I don't know. I've never really driven this track on iRacing before, only in ACC. So yeah, it's different in LMP2 compared to GT3s, and because it's such a short track, even though there weren't a lot of cars on track today, there was a lot of lapping, and I think everyone did a pretty good job. And I may have done some nasty dive bombs, but yeah, I have to protect my lead or right behind me. But yeah, tips, I don't know, just drive your line so we can overtake you, the slower cars, and for the faster cars, yeah, I guess be a little bit patient because the difference between the LMP2 and LMDH isn't that big.
Well, there you have it. Justin Dijkstra finished third today in LMP2, but it wasn't for want of trying. They swapped the lead more than any other class did, more than both other classes combined, in fact, in LMP2. Justin, it was an absolute pleasure to watch you guys today. Congrats on another podium.
Thank you.
Last but certainly not least, something that I'm going to call the Dominicus report. Piotr, what a day it was. Up and down the field a little bit of drama for you guys in the number 6 as well. But overall, pretty good day. Top 5.
Pretty good day. No. Honestly, I just want to make this a quick interview at this point.
Was it that bad?
I felt horrible. I'm tired. I spun like 3 times, I think. I'm pretty sure I killed Heilman in a way. Sorry for that, by the way.
That's the second apology post race that we've gotten from the drivers.
You'd love to see it.
You hate to have it happen.
I had pace,
but you love
then
to
the
see it.
drive-through, yeah.
All right. Oh man.
I got like
Well,
22
Piotr-
off tracks, so there was a drive-through in it.
God.
Because of the drive-through, it ticked my tires again, so it took tires while I didn't want them. Everything just fine.
So
Just
despite the top 5, this
just
is
laughing the
a
pain
race
away.
that's not going to
Yeah.
live long in the memory.
Well, I still learned something from it at this point, so
There's the optimist
There's-
I know.
yeah, there's still a lesson there somewhere. I'd rather not
I'm-
want to see it now, but and just move on. But could have braked earlier, not downshift into turn 1 and spin myself around.
If
Don't
it makes
get
you
so
feel
many
better,
off
we didn't
tracks.
see that.
No, not really.
You just told on yourself. We didn't know.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm going to turn you over.
We just
to
keep
s-
moving on.
There you go. I'm going to turn you over to Sarah Stant.
So I might be a little biased to start off with. Love your icon.
Thanks.
Secondly, just overall, great race. I mean, obviously, it would have been like to probably been in the winner's circle today, but overall, congratulations on finishing the race, which is really one of the hardest things to do in some of these races.
Yeah, this just was painful for me this time around. But it's fine.
Absolutely.
Traffic
I wish
was
you better
actually
luck on the next
better.
race.
It will be fine. Traffic wasn't too bad, I have to say, so we will see next time.
Absolutely. Well, good luck on your next race. You're heading to my favorite track in all of racing, Road Atlanta.
Don't get me started.
A lady of culture. Piotr was not too thrilled today, but in realistic terms, he gained ground in the championship and maybe learned a lesson as well. Piotr, as always, thanks for coming and talking to us. Good luck next week.
Thanks for commentating, broadcasting. Boy.
Absolutely our pleasure. I've never heard such an optimistic, sad fella in my life, but Piotr, not really happy about the race today, but also he gained some stuff as well. So it's one of those that you forget, hit Control Alt Delete on your brain, you move on to Atlanta in 1 week's time, which we will be with you back here next Thursday for Road Atlanta, the 5th and penultimate round the 6th and penultimate round of the championship. I knew that didn't sound right when I said it. And we'll be live with you here on RCI TV. One more broadcast for you this week. Night Owl coming at you on Saturday night. And you won't want to miss that. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss a single race when we go live. Of course, we'll be back with you on Monday for the start of the newest Monday Champ. It's touring cars and GT4s. For a complete list of all the championships we're running and how to sign up to them no matter what sim they're in, you can go to racerci.com and check in with us. We would love to have you and talk to you in a race coming up. One final thank you to all of our partners. A big thank you to a very patient Ash Bibby and Sarah Stant with me as well. Sarah, what's your final thoughts on everything you saw here tonight?
Final thought is that, a lot of drivers did their absolute best to try and keep it together. Some did better than others, but at the end of the day, most of them got through, and hey, congratulations to the ones who got through, and we'll see you all next time at Road Atlanta.
We will indeed. Some of the drivers that won, they said that they were preaching patience and it worked out. A virtue here today, maybe at Laguna Seca. It's been a long day, a lot to digest from the driver's standpoint, a lot of drive-thrus out there in the pit lane as well. I've been Jesse Lee, joined by Sarah Stanton and Ash Bibby on the call. We'll see you next week for Road Atlanta, and until then, have a good night.